says revision 2 is the final, right?
I'm sorry? Yes, revision 2 is the final. All right. If you want to go with me, again, this is where we are. On your paper here, your areas to focus on paper. We had gotten all the way through these sections on function. The only last little piece we didn't have was midbrain, reticular formation, and cerebellum. Let's take this away from you.
Oh.
You have 2 copies.
I have 2.
Okay, good. That way I can hang on to it.
Oh, but my name's not.
I got you. All right, so midbrain. You have your list out, right? You've gotten out your pieces as far as the functions that you came up with. I'm sorry? So let's talk about the midbrain. Again, midbrain being part of the brain stem. If we go, I have to remember not to talk quite so loud because I don't need to. Trying to find that lovely picture of the midbrain. No. Here we go. Midbrain being the very... Sorry guys, there's a lot of conversation. The midbrain being the most superior part of the brainstem. Medulla oblongata being the most inferior. Pons being the one in the middle, and then midbrain being the most superior. Tell me about function. What's your textbook say? Raised hand. Function for the midbrain. Anybody?
It has myelinated axons and it joins parts.
Okay, so certainly myelinated axons are present there. Joins the brain stem and the spinal cord, she says. The midbrain. Short section between diencephalon and pons has myelinated axon nerve fibers, what you said. Okay. The midbrain contains several masses of gray matter that serve as what? Reflex centers, right? This is on page 243 in your textbook. Are y'all with me? Okay. Midbrain includes several masses of gray matter that serve as reflex centers. So, for example, the midbrain contains the centers for certain visual reflexes. So, for example, those are responsible for moving the eyes to view something as the head turns. It also contains auditory reflex centers that enable the person to move the head to hear sounds more distinctly. Those are the 2 pieces they talk about. So, what shall we put here? It certainly is still doing nerve fibers, right? So bundles of myelinated axons, joins, where's the join? Okay. It says is the main motor pathway between the cerebrum and the lower parts of the nervous system. Okay. Cerebrum with spinal cord. And what else does it have there? The reflex centers. It's a good piece. Reticular formation is over on page 244. I don't know if we get any good pictures of this. So what do we have function-wise for reticular formation? What does it do? I'm sorry, say again, Joe?
It helps to wake up the cerebral cortex and gets like impulses or little messages.
Okay. When sensory impulses reach the reticular formation, it responds by activating the cerebral cortex into a state of wakefulness. Okay. Islands of gray matter is what they call that in the brainstem, because it's in all three pieces, right? The medulla oblongata, the pons, the midbrain. Okay. Without this arousal, the cortex remains unaware of stimulation and cannot interpret sensory information or carry on thought processes. Thus, decreased activity in the reticular formation results in what? Sleep. Sleep, yeah. Okay? If the reticular formation is injured so it cannot function, the person remains unconscious and cannot be aroused, even with strong stimulation. This is called a comatose state. So barbiturate drugs, which dampen the central nervous system, affect the reticular formation. Okay? So can we say that it controls consciousness? Obviously not like that, right? So there you go. I missed the N. Consciousness. And last but not least, cerebellum. You should already know this one. We've talked about this one before.
Coordination.
Coordination is the big one for that. Boy, I just cannot spell today. Coordination is the easiest thing to think of when we talk about.
How come words like myelinated and diencephalon and stuff like that aren't found in like Word documents?
I guess they don't do much with the deep parts of the brain. You know, most people. So, yeah. Okay. Any questions here? A fairly straightforward list.
Do you have a date for the test?
A date for the test. Have I not given you one yet? Today is what day? Thursday, right? If I get it. Well, let's see. A and P. I did not give you a final date for that test, have I? Right. We have to roll our calendar over here. Today being Thursday, I am going to bet. Are we done here? Can I change this off?
She says it's blurry.
So basically, we have this little bit left here, which I think we're going to be able to finish most of that today. Today being Thursday, right?
Thursday.
Monday, we have only a half day.
And it might snow.
And frankly, I don't think we have enough time in that 20 minutes of time for class to...
Make it like a 2 answers, 3 questions.
that would be it. Please describe all the parts of the nervous system. That'd be a great question, right? She said one question. But that'd be a long essay, wouldn't it? So let's say Tuesday. Let's say Tuesday. Sorry?
You're going to repeat, he recorded everything.
Everything isn't recorded. We will have...
It's not Moodle?
I don't have a Moodle. My Moodle is not working. It's on YouTube.
YouTube.
You search. I can.
Would you send us the link to like the actual?
I can.
Not to a video, but to the actual.
Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Trying to talk techie.
I'm with you. It's good. It's good. All right, so let's say Tuesday. Let's say Tuesday. Yes. Please hear me, my friends. Shh. I better write this down. So otherwise, CJ's not going to remember. Better write it down. Okay? Tuesday. Hang on. Shh. If no school Monday, test equals Tuesday. Okay?
So it's Tuesday no matter what.
It is Tuesday no matter what.
Make it Thursday.
Okay. Why do I say that? Because you all would doubt. You would question.
You know it.
Okay?
You'll be getting a whole academic.
Well, I think that they're talking right now about 30% chance, at least the guy that I really trust meteorologically. He says about 30% chance of us getting something. Fairly small. Good. Shh. You realize, or maybe you don't realize this. Yesterday was our 6th snow day. Okay, any more, they're going to start talking about having to make stuff up.
For us too.
I'm telling you, that's the way. That's the case. Shh. There's about 6 different possibilities, and nothing has been decided yet. So I'm just moving on.
They didn't add school 8th grade.
Yes, there are lots of good options we have. I want to move on, but I just want to make sure you know. So yes, I like snow days too, but I kind of like us going to school when we go to school. Okay. So let's move on. Spinal nerves. Pretty straightforward as far as dealing with these guys. You have this picture. Where's this at in your lovely textbook?
I don't know. I have no clue.
Should be past that. One more.
I was just trying to write down those.
There it is.
49.
249. Thank you. Okay. So we spent lots of time talking about the brain. From the brain, the cerebrum, you move down into the brain stem. We're passing off some of the other pieces in between, but into the brain stem, into the spinal cord, right? The spinal cord then goes all the way down to the very bottom. If I pull out our little skeleton here, it truthfully goes all the way down into the sacrum. Okay, remember that there's that little central canal in the middle of the vertebrae? That's where that spinal cord goes. Coming out, and you can see them here very nicely, coming out all these little holes in the side of the vertebrae, that's where these little nerves come out, these spinal nerves. And we break them into basically 4 groups. You have the...
I'm never going to forget that house.
you have the cervical plexus. You have the brachial plexus. You have what I would have called the thoracic nerves. They call them the intercostal. Shh. What is costal? Nope.
In between?
Inter means in between.
I forget. Middle. It has to be a long something.
The ribs. The ribs. Costocartilage. Remember this right here? Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's the see-through stuff.
Right. That's this thin stuff here, the clear stuff. Shh. So these are our thoracic nerves. And then down here you have the lumbosacral.
So what happens if we put thoracic nerves instead of
I would be okay with that. Okay? So cervical nerves, we have C1 all the way through C8. And you say, wait, Mr. Hess, there's only 7 cervical vertebrae, though, right? Remember? There's C1 through C7, and then we have T1 through T12, and then L1 through 5. Okay? But there's actually 8 nerves. It's because they come out in between those different pieces. So C1 comes out between C1 and C2, right in the space between them. C2 comes out between C2 and C3, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. C8 comes out between C7 and T1. Okay, so there's 8 cervical spinal nerves, though only 7 cervical bones, vertebrae.
In the cervical plexus.
Right. Well, the cervical plexus is only talking about these top 4. But in all the cervical, there's 8 cervical nerves. Yes, ma'am. The brachial plexus, so C5 to T1, these are the nerves that control your arms. Okay, all of the muscles that work for shoulders, upper arm, forearm, hand, all of that is controlled from C5 to T1. So if I were to have an injury to my spinal cord at C4, what could you tell me? If I have an injury here at C4, I would be a quadriplegic. You said what? You could move your neck. That would be fine. You could do some movement there, but you shouldn't have any movement of your hands or legs. Okay? If I were to make an injury, let's say here at C6, okay? Well, you would still have some movement shoulders. C6 goes even to your bicep, but your triceps are C7. Most of your forearm musculature is C7, C8. So you would have some motions you could do, but others you couldn't. Trapezius is C5, C6. Okay?
What is cervical plexus control? I don't know if they're there.
Right, this would be talking more about the neck musculature, some of the glands that are here. Not as important that you know all that stuff. On your sheet here, what I said I need you to know is you need to know the numbers, C1 to 8, right? And then the other pieces that we'll talk about in a moment. Question, sir?
So how would somebody, like my grandfather had a stroke,
Mm-hmm.
he couldn't use his right arm.
So that's not a cervical nerve thing. That's a brain thing. It would have been that there was, if he had a paralysis on the right side, it means his infarct, his stroke, was in the left side of his brain. Oops, but that'd be left. That's what it's infarct. That's what it's called. The stroke. Well, if it's the right side of his body, it's the left side of his brain. This is posterior view. Okay? I'm sorry? It's because of that crossing of those nerves in the spinal cord. Where was that picture? See right here? So that's sensory. This is motor. Right? You can't see through him. He's nothing but skin and bones. Not even skin. So you see, here's the motor cortex for this side. As it comes down, it makes that cross over to the other side. Yeah, a little strange. I'm with you. Okay, back to our spinal nerves. You can see there are 5 nerves here. You do not have to know the names. Stop. You don't have to know the names of these guys, but there are 5 significant nerves that go to the arms. Musculus, cutaneous, axillary, radial, median, ulnar. Radian and ulnar, are you pretty comfortable where those go? Radian's on the lateral side of your arm. Ulnar's on the medial side, just like the bones. Where do you think median goes? Right through the middle, right? Muscular cutaneous, that's one that's up here, deltoid, trapezius, those areas. Axillary, what's the axillary region? Underarm, right? Armpit, absolutely. So that kind of runs through this area. This is a very important piece. These things, these 5 nerves are formed from, again, C5 through T1. And they keep combining, like they combine and they split, and they combine and they split in this thing that we call the brachial plexus. Those of you who are wanting to move on as far as medicine goes, you'll learn that. I remember spending a lot of time in my dorm room learning all these different pieces of how that muscle divides, or the nerves divide and come back together and divide and come back together. You don't have to know any of that, though. You will someday, but not yet. Thoracic nerves, these intercostal nerves, T2 down through, they have it through T11. I'm okay with that. Those are basically just moving to the muscles around your rib cage. Because between all the little bones, remember those intercostal muscles that help expand and contract your ribs? As well as your obliques and those kind of things. Then you get down to the lumbosacral plexus. And really, they have you T12 to S1. Really, L1 through S1 are really the most important. Those are the nerves that send signals to your legs. And a couple of main nerves you have there. It's really only three that are significant. The femoral nerve, the obturator nerve, and the sciatic nerve. Femoral nerve comes down the front, and then branches a whole bunch after that, but that's more your front side. Where do you think this obturator nerve goes? Through the obturator foramen. Remember that, the big hole in your pelvis? Right, this guy right here. The big hole right here.
Is that nerve actually that big?
No. It's a bigger area than it needs to be. But it's a pretty good size. Yeah. You said what? Sciatic nerve then goes behind. It runs more along the outside here. When you have people who have back pain, that get pain down their legs or numbness, tingling, oftentimes that's sciatic nerve. I think it's getting irritated. Oh, I have sciatica. You heard someone say that before?
I saw a movie in Sky, I was like, my sciatic nerves are like this.
Yes, talking about the buttock down the back of the leg. Yes, sir.
This doesn't really have that much to do with the nervous system, more like the skeletal system. But like, when you crack your back, what is the sound you're hearing?
You can see that there's tons of little joints, little areas here. Sometimes those get kind of out of whack. When you make those pops, you're literally pushing them back into place or into other positions. It's not necessarily a terrible thing. They get out of position from what we do all day long, but it's not something you want to continually be doing. Yeah.
But if you're pushing them back into place, if you don't push them ahead, they just eventually get back.
There's lots of muscles that are attached, so they can go back into position without you manipulating them. Back to our sheet. What you need to know. That there are 8 cervical nerves. There are 12 thoracic nerves. There are 5 lumbar nerves. And then you have some nerves that are in the sacrum and the coccyx, so sacral and coccygeal nerves. They occur in pairs, right? So one side, so on the left here, this is C6 that comes out on the left, and this is C6 that comes out on the right. So like, you truthfully can, yep. And then they have a ventral and a dorsal root, is what they call it. So let me show you that picture here. If we look at this, you can see, again, this would be the anterior side, this would be the posterior side, so ventral, dorsal of the spinal cord. You can see that there are these 2 different pieces that come out. The anterior root would be this, stop. This thing just does weird things sometimes. Here is my anterior side, and here is my posterior side. It's not. That's all right. Okay? And the anterior side, if you read back here, what does it say? The ventral anterior side does what? Motor. And the posterior dorsal side does sensory. Are you with me? So this is showing you here from the skin, a sensory neuron coming in, going into the posterior or dorsal root, into the spinal cord, up to the brain. Brain sends signal back down, comes into the spinal cord, around on the anterior or ventral root, and then down to the muscle to send the signal to actually do something. Anterior motor, posterior sensory. tons more details. We could spend all this time talking about autonomic ganglions and dorsal root ganglions or presynaptic or postsynaptic. I'm not going through all that with you. Sir?
Okay, this is going to be kind of a difficult question to ask. So, if I wanted to tell my muscle to pick up my phone, I have
Right.
my phone in my hand, do the nerves keep shooting into my arm to say contract more, or is it one that just says contract all the way up? And then,
Anytime that muscle is actually firing, there is signal telling it to keep firing. So it's not like it sends one signal and then it forgets about it. As long as you are still doing that motion, there are signals coming. Yeah, not a bad question at all. Any questions about these things, my friends? The plexuses we've already talked about briefly. What do you need to know about them is simply what I have written here. Plexuses are spinal nerves combining and then recombining to form these networks instead of continuing directly to the peripheral body parts. Why do you think this is a good idea? Let me put this picture back up here so you can see all these different plexuses. I mean, look at this. This is like just if you look at this area here, it's like just a nasty tangle of nerves. Why might you think that would be the case? What's that? Okay, now that's kind of right in your underarm, truthfully. If you were to like take off the skin right here, you could find these nerves very easily. Okay, so maybe you're saying protection from bone or protection from just the whole group of them together. I'm with you. I'll give you a partial credit for that one. What's that? Not necessarily speed it up. Imagine that you had a bulging disc in your neck that cuts off that C6. Maybe it doesn't totally kill it, but it stops the signal from going through there. If simply it went from one nerve to one muscle, that muscle would then be toast, right? You couldn't use that muscle. But because multiple nerves will go into each different muscle, you can still get some signal even if one nerve is blocked. It is. It's like a backup plan. I usually come down this direction, but if this is blocked, okay, I'll kind of go around it and get to that muscle nonetheless. Does that make sense? Rather than just having this one direct route to go. So no, it's very wise. Most muscles are innervated, get their nerve supply from more than one nerve. More than one spinal nerve. It's only one nerve that goes to it, but that nerve is made up of, let's say, C6 or C7. Or C7, C8, T1, all of that goes to this one place. And that's what that plexus is, that recombining and uncombining and recombining again. No, it's just the name we give for that jangled mess of dividing and coming back together, dividing and coming back together. Are you with me? Cool. Beautiful. We're down to the last piece, which is on autonomic nervous system, which basically there are two pieces to that. Again, remind me, what is autonomic nervous system? Automatic. Breathing, your heart, all the things we don't control voluntarily, right? Involuntary things. So there's two pieces to that, and that is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Where are we at in your textbook here, my friends? 250? Sounds like a good place to be. By the way, your textbook goes through a whole bunch of good information about the spinal, the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. Don't be afraid to check those out. Okay? What does the sympathetic nervous system do? What's its function? Truthfully, right in the middle of page 250. the sympathetic nervous system. Right above where it says automatic neurons, that autonomic neurons, that paragraph there. The sympathetic division prepares the body for energy expending, stressful, or emergency situations as part of the fight or flight. You've heard this term before? The fight or flight response. Okay? So my sympathetic is dealing with the fight or flight. You know that like shot of adrenaline you get? You know? When you see some mean person like JoJo going to come up and whack you or something? Makes you want to either fight her, if you're feeling like, big and strong that day, or try and run away from her. Though she'll probably catch you. She's pretty quick. Okay? That's your sympathetic nervous system kicking in. That fight or flight. Conversely, the parasympathetic is most active under ordinary restful conditions. It counterbalances the effect of the sympathetic system and restores the body to a resting state following a stressful experience. For example, during an emergency, the sympathetic nervous system increases heart rate. Following that emergency, the parasympathetic decreases the heart rate. So the sympathetic is like that, emergency, all like nervous, I'm excited, something's going to happen kind of person. And the parasympathetic is that relaxing, quieting voice. Calm down. No, it's okay. Let's get back to homeostasis. Are you with me? What controls that autonomic nervous system? The brainstem. This is not cognitive. You can't control this voluntarily. Obakabi? Any questions that you have for me? And by the way, much more detail is given about that control over on page 254. Control centers in the medulla oblongata control the cardiac and the vasomotor and the respiratory activities. Hypothalamus is body temperature, hunger, thirst, water, right? So this autonomic is controlled in many places. I'm just giving you a fairly straightforward answer to say it comes from the brain stem. Sorry? We'll do some movie Monday, absolutely. And tomorrow's even Friday, too, so we have a little more time as well. Okay. The bell's about to ring, so I shall let you go. Adios.